Captain, Jalen Brunson, born to play basketball.
Jalen Brunson shouldn't be here. A 6-foot guard, drafted in the second round at almost 22, he wasn't supposed to be good. When Brunson was at the back end of the Mavs rotation at 23, that was expected. We expected Brunson to be played off the court in his first playoff series at 24. We expected Brunson to not be good enough to get the rookie extension. We didn't expect what happened after that. Nobody expected a random 25-year-old to lead Dallas to wins in the playoffs and take a random star leap. Nobody expected someone barely 6 foot to get MVP votes. Nobody expected a second-round pick to be a multi-time All-NBA guy. Nobody expected Brunson to lead the Knicks to their first conference finals in 26 years. Jalen Brunson has done the unthinkable.
Brunson's development is genuinely one of the craziest we have ever seen in league history. Coming into the draft, he was heralded as a bad athlete, too small, too old, and a terrible defender. While his strengths were apparent, nobody expected him to have this much of a high ceiling, but instead of winning gritty guard who might be able to play some scrappy minutes. Brunson would be drafted in the second round to Dallas, meant to just be a backup to Luka, and players like Mo Bamba, Jerome Robinson, Zaire Smith, Zana Musa, and more were drafted before him. Those are not good players, and again, he played his first NBA game at 22. Players this good don't enter the league that late in today's league, but let's get to that later. Brunson was still at the back half of the rotation by 25 years old, not getting a consistent starting spot and losing it to players like Dennis Smith Jr., Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Richardson, and Seth Curry. We all know how good of a playoff player Brunson is right now, but he wasn't always that. Brunson was legit horrible in the 2021 playoffs against the Clippers, getting played off the floor by the end as he averaged less than 4 points on 36% shooting in the final 3 games. At 25 years old, Brunson was a small bench guard who couldn't play in the playoffs, couldn't crack the starting rotation, and wasn't awarded a second contract. That's when it flipped. At 25 years old, after 6 seasons playing college and pro ball, Brunson would become one of the best basketball players in the NBA, really even in the world. How did he get this jump and how rare is this leap? Well, a lot of it is just opportunity. While you can succeed next to Luka as a second option like Kyrie did perfectly, Brunson picked up too late in the season, already after the Mavs stupidly refused to offer him the 4-year, $55 million extension. While not a shot at Luka, as he's one of my favorite players, leaving the ball-dominant, heavy offense to a place where he can be his own player will always give players a much higher ceiling, and he proved his skill ability when leading Dallas to a 2-1 lead without Luka against the Jazz in the 2022 playoffs. But still, that type of leap doesn't just happen. We see guys go from stars to superstars, or good starters to stars, but we have never seen someone that was barely a starter to a legit top 10 player and superstar in 1 to 2 years. There has never been a single season jump this late into a player's career to being an actual superstar like this. But there's another way that he's breaking history, and that is being this good at this size. Brunson is listed at 6'1" barefoot and 6'2" in shoes, but he's pretty clearly not that. Actually, probably much shorter, and likely shorter than even 6 foot, maybe even 5'10", 5'11". Now, how is he so good despite being that short? Well, we'll get to that later, but just how rare is it to be this good at that height? Among players listed at 6'2" or shorter, he's one of just 4 players to ever have 3 consecutive seasons of averaging 24 points a game while playing 60 or more games, with the others being Iverson, Dame, and Trey, likely being just one of 3 players who are actually 6 foot or shorter with AI and Trey. For such a small player, he's genuinely one of the greatest scorers at his height, and that becomes even more clear in the playoffs. Since joining the Knicks, he has averaged nearly 30 points in over 40 playoff games. Though not on great efficiency, it doesn't matter much as it is the playoffs, and to accomplish this at that height is really unprecedented. He's just one of 3 players at that height to ever average 30 across a 40-game sample span in the playoffs, the others being Iverson and Curry. This is one of the greatest scorers ever at that height, but when looking into his all-around scoring game, it gets even more impressive, being an elite scorer in every part of the court, but again, we'll talk more about that later. Brunson is also breaking norms for who he is doing this with. Despite being arguably the biggest market in American sports, the Knicks have been historically disappointing. They've won just 2 championships, which doesn't sound terrible until you realize they have been around since 1946 and are New York, the premier free agent destination. Teams like the Lakers and Celtics have had instant success and are the two most accomplished teams in league history. Even newer big markets like Miami already have more championships. And remember, New York was playing in a league with just a few teams in it. And recently, they've got even worse, not having won a title in over 50 years, and recently going on a 25-year conference finals drought. Well, Brunson is ending all of that. For the first time since 2000, the Knicks made the conference finals, and they even put up a very good fight against the Pacers. The 4 playoff series they've won over the last 3 years is also more than the combined 3 they won across the entire century before Brunson arrived. That is 23 years of playoff success, overcoming just 3 because of Brunson. 3 of their 5 most winning regular seasons over the last 25 years have come in the last 3 years, despite insanely unlucky injuries during a lot of the 2024 season. This is a franchise that was in the trenches, genuinely one of the worst in this century, until Jalen Brunson arrived and saved everything. But just how good is Brunson? Before we get to that, if you are enjoying the video, if you could subscribe and like, that'd mean the world. But back to it. Everything starts with Brunson scoring. Despite being that short, he's one of the best interior scorers in the league. Brunson's build separates him from guys like Steph or Trey. While good inside scorers, they struggle with contact heavily. If you get physical with many shorter guards in the paint, it throws off everything they do, as they can't handle the physicality most of the time. Brunson embraces it. Something that helps many players in general is hunting for contact before they give it to you, and Brunson will commonly do that. When getting downhill, he would just run into defenders, usually giving a little push, and his stocky frame is what makes it work so well. He weighs 190 pounds, and at that height, he's a pretty big guy, and is able to use that frame to cause defenders problems. Even inside, he's a really good finisher. His footwork is some of the best in the league, being able to trick defenders and get inside from weirder spots. Because of his ability to throw off bigger players, he shoots pretty solid inside numbers, but even getting to that shot is very weird, but it works. Brunson can switch from hip to hip extremely fast, making some very weird and unorthodox movements inside that throw off defenders. His body control is genuinely 99th percentile, and having to deal with someone that moves that weirdly is extremely difficult to do as a defender. Not many players can just jerk their body to the other side that quickly while remaining in complete control. Brunson's first step is also very dangerous. It doesn't seem the fastest when watching it, but it works. He can consistently get past defenders, and being that small does help him maneuver in smaller spaces. His change of direction may be one of his best qualities. Brunson can stop on a dime, which we will talk about later with his outside game, but like we said, he can control his body amazingly. He can switch directions in an instant and create new driving lanes. Another area where JB excels is the mid-range. Brunson's ability to just stop is what makes the pull-up midi so deadly. For his build, he has to find creative ways to get space, as he can't just rise over defenders, so the ability to stop and rise for the shot before the defender can even really get ready is so deadly. Brunson creating contact with defenders also helps here, being able to create even more separation and more open space. Brunson's floater is genuinely deadly. He's one of the premier floater scorers, being able to get defenders on his hip or behind him and get easier looks. He can also just snake around the defense and get better looks while being someone that can fade away and still hit at an elite rate, but that gets into something where he's generationally great at, being his post-up game. Someone that is barely 6 foot. I know I've said it a million times, but this dude is barely and might not even be 6 foot, but he's one of the best posting up guards at that height ever. Now, why is that? Of course, it's because of his frame. Being a stronger and more heavy guard allows him to get better positioning, and to actually be able to force his man off his spot at times, usually using the post up to spin and get better looks inside. While I am much lower on Cat than many, the spacing that he brings does help JB get inside easier. But what about him on the perimeter? Well, he's an absolute beast. Brunson is a premier pull-up 3-point scorer, being just one of 6 players to make over 90 pull-up threes on over 37%. The variability in what he can do as a ball handler from the perimeter is what is so scary and unlocks so much of his game, including the pull-up 3. Off the catch, he's still more than respectable, making over 53s on 42%. Overall, he can hit big shots. It has more than enough ways to get his spots to the threes, but where he's arguably the best at, of course, the pick and roll. Brunson is generally one of the best pick and roll operators in the entire league, and with Mitchell Robinson returning, it made him even better. While I will talk about his playmaking in a bit, Brunson creates so much opportunity, even just as a self-creator in the pick and roll. It gives him an advantage going downhill, getting defenders in awkward positions, and being able to create shots inside, but is also someone that can pull up or step back into a better shot. Something that most love about Brunson is also his handle. It really is one of the tightest in the league and can cause defenders, even the best ones, to struggle, like his series winner over a sword just a couple months ago. He doesn't lose the ball, and it allows him to get through more defenders without much struggle. Now, about his playmaking, he's one of the most underrated in the league, and what has really grown so much in his game over the last few years, Brunson is a much more willing passer, as he doesn't make mistakes. The consistently good reads combined with his insane handle allow Brunson to be an extremely high usage offensive leader who also commits very few turnovers. He's an underrated defensive manipulator, and his gravity as a scorer opens up so much for him on that side of the ball. Brunson gets slandered for putting up a lot of shots, as some say he doesn't pass enough. And maybe he isn't always perfect with the balance between the two, but he is a truly underrated playmaker, and being elite in those two areas is what makes him so good in the clutch. Brunson consistently gets great looks and isn't afraid to take over at all. He will demand the ball and just hunt like a predator looking for prey, and that led to him winning Clutch Player of the Year this season after having finished top 5 in the first 2 years of the award's creation. Yes, since going to New York, the 3 years the Clutch Player of the Year award has been available, he's got top 5 every time, and won one of them. What also helps is his ability to get calls. Some may hate on him for it, but it works extremely well, and that's all that matters for the Knicks. And next year, in a wide open East, with the Celtics not looking like contenders, Pacers and Bucks without their star point guards, and Sixers with many injury questions, the Knicks will be one of the favorites to make it to the NBA Finals for the first time in over a quarter century. And if there is one man to lead them there, it is Jalen Brunson.